Hi, everyone, and welcome to the finalist voting for the Maven LEGO Challenge. Now, out of the nearly 200 participants, we've got five finalists that we're going to be pitting against each other for the grand prize here. We've got Marianne Mellis, Jack Andrew, Stefano Ciurlia, Mateusz Ciacira, and Oleg Skylarski. Now, we're going to be judging these five finalists by using the challenge objective, which was to piece together an interactive dashboard or visual that lets users explore the history and evolution of LEGO sets from the past 5 decades. Now, we're also going to be taking into account the project as a whole. So that includes the visual, the description, and the images. So let's get started.
I'm excited to be talking about Marie Ann's challenge entry today. She did a really great job with her visualization, and I'm really impressed with how it turned out. To get started, as usual, we're kind of looking at that about section. I really appreciated how succinct but thorough Marie Ann was. She kind of defines her audience specifically as herself, which I thought was fantastic. And it also kind of led to what she wanted to get most out of the dashboard. She kind of walked us through a little bit about how she cleaned the data and some potential concerns that she ran into. And then in this dashboard section down here, I really like that she kind of called out the reason why she chose to do certain things. One of them was that she thought about putting the filters horizontally rather than vertically. I think that she said that she really liked vertical filters more, but the horizontal layout allowed you to kind of see what you had selected previously, which I thought was just, in terms of like user experience, I think it was a great call for her to make. And then looking at this actual dashboard itself, I really actually loved this logo in the upper left-hand corner. She mentions that it was generated with AI, so it was just a lot of fun. And I think it really helped anchor us in the theme and the purpose of the dashboard as Marie Ann saw it. So really, like, she was talking about how she really wanted to go back to her childhood and relive her Lego memories. So I think that that was just a really fun kind of addition to the dashboard here. And I think that she accomplished the objective of the challenge really well. With the various search filters up here, you can kind of apply whichever ones you want, and it really lets us explore the history and evolution of the Lego sets. When I first kind of started exploring this dashboard, I used the information button right here, and it kind of gives you an idea of some of the things that Marie Ann anticipated people using this for. So I really like that she kind of thought about this. One of the ones that I thought was interesting was this negative search. So essentially, the automatic search is to select all. And if you would like to select everything but the unknown option, you just have to first select all and then select unselect unknown. So just kind of a cool way to like give people a little bit more context about the dashboard and how she anticipates that people using it. So really digging into this dashboard, I thought it was really clean, really easy to understand. This was very much an exploratory dashboard, so I wasn't expecting a ton of charts and graphs. But this single chart here that kind of shows the total number of Lego sets compared to your particular search results felt really relevant. So I thought it was a really great kind of use of the single chart that she did choose to show us. I also really liked that this detail section continues to update as we filter down through different kind of filters. So one thing that I did kind of notice up here is that the filters are a little bit misleading. So when you first open the dashboard, there are some kind of pre-selected options, which threw me off for a little bit. So, select a number of pieces was unknown, and then select a release year was multiple selections. So it took me a second to kind of figure out exactly how to change that. But clicking this little erase button up here kind of resets everything. So then you're able to use them the way they're meant to be used. So, I can kind of go through and I could choose years. I could choose certain themes or categories. And then from there, we're going to kind of see that things have been updated as we go. And then lastly, scrolling down to the very bottom, this is really just dedicated to specific Lego sets. So as you filter, you're also filtering these down, and you can kind of hover over these Lego sets to get more information about the specific set. Overall, this was an awesome entry, really, really great exploratory dashboard of Lego sets, and I loved the design and the functionality of it. So amazing job, Marie Ann.
So one of the things that stood out to me about Jack's dashboard is just how clean and succinct everything was. It takes a different approach than some of the others. So a lot of the finalists you'll see also provide an inventory of Lego sets that go along with your interactive filters, etc. And I think that's a really nice approach, but I also think there's a lot to be said for the simplicity and cleanliness of Jack's approach. And what I would say about Jack's overall approach here is that it's a great example of data journalism, excuse me. So it tells a very captivating and engaging story through the use of visualization and some very helpful text to inform the user. And before I dive into this visualization, really quickly, I want to show that Jack's write-up is a perfect example of what I love to call a one-pager. So it includes very succinct information about his project, his goals, his methodology, and findings in what would fit on one page, which is very nice for people who want to understand what he was thinking without getting all of the technical details. And this is often what you'll see as an executive summary or documentation to support this. So I really want to commend Jack for his succinct write-up. So let's go ahead and dive into this visualization. And so what I love about this visualization is his unique use of windows, or this highlighting of decades. And this allows the user, first of all, to see the overall trend. I jump on this page and I can see that overall Lego sets have grown over time, with growth really taking off in the 2000s and 2010s. But what Jack does here is that he provides some really interesting write-ups. And I'm actually going to go to these screenshots because a few things do get lost in this deployed version of the dashboard. But if we start in the 70s, as we move decade to decade, different callouts appear that indicate important events in Lego's history. And to do this, Jack had to do some external research to identify important milestones that supported changes in the trend in this overall data. And so I thought this was a really great approach. And you'll also notice that as we move, for example, to the 80s, we can see that we start to get year-over-year changes with these nice tooltips here. A little bit of that gets lost in this deployed dashboard. I won't knock him for that. I think there's sometimes issues when these get deployed live. But overall, this allows the user to move from decade to decade and understand what the key trends and insights were. And this is a unique visual to me. So I've never seen the use of this highlighting to focus on a given window. And what happens is as we move decade to decade, not only do we get an overall narrative, this journalistic, insights on what's going on, but all of these metrics also change. And if you wanted to drill down into a specific Lego set, I won't click this just yet because I want to move through a few more decades. You will see that we can filter this dashboard and our chart will change. But I really love this approach to a time series. This is something that I think is very effective for telling a great story about how Lego has evolved with key milestones along the way. But it still does provide that additional drill down value. Were you curious about Star Wars? So we can see Star Wars licensed sets started to take off in the late 90s. And so we can isolate individual sets as needed. But if we were to refresh this, we would be able to zoom back out and get that big picture clearly. And so I love Jack's approach here. I think he tells an amazing narrative, provides a clean visual with nice use of color. If I were to knock anything, I would say that I don't love these series labels that are quite far out from the actual visual. But for the most part, I think this is extremely polished and a very clever way to tell a story about how things change over time. It's very intuitive to interact with and gives us the ability to drill down into more detail. So well done, Jack.
Okay, so let's go through Stefano's entry. Once again, Stefano partnered up with the UI UX developer to create an exploratory tool which helps folks dig into the world of Lego. Before we dive into the actual tool, and I'm just going to reset it here. Before we dive into the actual tool, I want to talk about his project, which his write-up here is long. Like it's really, really long and it's detailed and I love it. He and his partner, they take us through the entire journey where they outline 7 steps and talk about their thought process, their execution process, and everything that basically led them from start to finish. So the first step, which I think is probably the most important one, was to identify the target audience. And this is so important, and we talk about it often because what they did here basically set the tone for everything that followed, right? So they defined a Lego enthusiast and they write up what constitutes a Lego enthusiast. From there, it's about digging into the data and understanding based off of that data what should be delivered to these Lego enthusiasts, right? So in here, they talk about stuff like quality of data, missing values, data integrity, stuff like that, and how that influenced their decisions moving forward. So we cannot really go through all of this because, as I said, it's quite extensive. But the next step included the ATL process, right? So they modeled the data, prepared it for use. They built an MVP. They built a prototype of sorts. In steps 5 and 6, they built the UX and integrated the whole thing together. And finally, in step 7, they polished, they did some final testing and published to Power BI service. So as you can see, as I actually left my mouse, and it goes on and on and on and on. Like, it's really, really extensive, and there is a ton of value here. Folks who decide to go through this will firsthand see what an end-to-end project looks like to build a tool like the one I'm about to show you, right? So there is, for folks who are hunting for code snippets, like Stefano shared a ton of his SQL and M code, Power Query M code. A lot of this stuff can be repurposed. So just so much value lives in Maven Showcase in his project. Speaking about the tool, let's go back up, and I've actually let's do this. I've opened it in a new window just so it's a little bit of a better view. They went with the classic sort of style. This is what stuff looked like when I was a kid, and there are two basic ways that we can use this tool. Right, we have these filtering options here, which if we decide to select, let's make some selections, and just as we make these selections, you will notice that this number here decreases. Basically, we're immediately informed about the number of sets that match our selected criteria. If I hit go, then those sets are going to open up on the left-hand side, and I have a bunch of this information here about the specific set. And what I thought was a really nice touch, there is actually an external source that takes us to the website where we can maybe shop for this stuff. I'm not going to do that now, but I thought it was a really clever touch from here. I can reset all of my filters, and I get the original 18,000 and something sets, and I can go back to the landing page and start the whole process again. What I also can do is, let's say that I'm not all that familiar with the criteria that LEGO uses to slice and dice their products. I can just search for something very specific. Let's say I search for world's most famous villain. I hit search, and then I see there are 54 LEGO sets that match my search, and I go, and again, I see a lot of this stuff. Now, through be told, not all of these are LEGO sets. There is some merge here, but that's just a tiny little detail that can be easily updated, and I have all the same functionality. Like, so the one thing that I was missing in this is like the overarching introduction to LEGO. Like, this is a purely exploratory tool. We don't really know a lot after that, right? We don't know when LEGO started, where they were, where they are now, and we've seen a lot of this in a lot of the other entries. Granted, the data wasn't fully complete, so some things didn't make a lot of sense if you wanted to dig deep into the analysis from a monetary standpoint. But I would just love to have some sort of like an information, hey, let's introduce LEGO and then dig from there. Other than that, it's really impressive work.
All right, so right off the bat, what really struck me about Mateusz's entry was really the focus on this Lego style main visual. Scroll down to it, like, this is kind of a very stunning, a showstopper of a visual, right? It like very much incorporates the branding. Like, you immediately look at this, and if there was not a single title on this entire visual, you'd stop and be like, oh, this is about Lego, right? So I really love that. In that same vein, I really like the overall layout and the theme that Mateusz used, adding in the single Lego brick elements as filter drop downs, using them as data points within the charts on the second page, incorporating the Lego build instructions here. If you click this, And you kind of see how this is constructed here, right? Like these are just some really cool, like Easter eggy kind of things where it's like, this is above and beyond. Like it's a really, really cool creative touch. So I love this stuff. I love the call out with the filtering elements here where he's saying like, if it isn't Lego or it isn't Lego if you can't build it yourself. So again, getting back to that kind of interactive nature of the dashboard and really tying that back into the theme or the purpose of the challenge here. So I think from an overall branding standpoint and making this feel like a Lego style report, absolutely nailed it. I also love these interactive tooltips. I don't know if this is just on my machine right now, but they do take a little bit to load. The reason for that is, again, they're these pre-recorded visual walkthroughs of how to interact with the reports and stuff. Super high value here. But some of these report elements within Power BI do take a little bit to load. So again, just really cool stuff there. If I kind of scroll down to the about this project, what I really like here is, a lot of times folks will take this section and really just talk through their process. And he does that later on, right? He kind of talks about the different elements and stuff within the report a little bit later on. But I like that he focuses this on like his journey, right? Like, here's the inspiration and the approach I took. And here was a personal challenge for me. And I really like that he is calling out that within this challenge, he challenged himself to not just use the standard or the default visualization types within Power BI, but instead took the time to really craft these custom Lego brick style elements, which again, are very, they're on the forefront, of this visual. But what's really impressive here is he didn't incorporate some other design element into this. He took the standard Power BI charts and then manipulated the styling to look like the Lego bricks. So it's not like he imported an add-on or a third-party tool or something to do this. So again, like that's just super impressive. So if I scroll back up here, again, I think you're doing a ton of stuff really well here. Some general kind of feedback that I think that would make this even more valuable is specifically around some of the chart labeling. For example, on the main chart here, it actually took me a few minutes to understand exactly what you were showing here. I can see that it's, kind of a trend over time grouped by years, but I'm not 100% sure what the quantity that I'm looking at here, like what's the value on the y-axis. So again, looking through the different KPI cards and some of the write-up, get an idea that it's, unique or official Lego sets here kind of trended over time, but I didn't see a title here to kind of specifically call that out. So I think that there's a very easy area of opportunity here to add in, either a y-axis, element, a chart title, or even a tooltip. You do a ton of stuff with tooltips, adding in a tooltip here that says like, hey, this is what these bars represent. I think that's a really easy way to just help the viewer really understand what you're looking at. One other piece here too, on your date axis is you've got the 1970/1980 piece here, and these are in groups of 10. So I wasn't quite sure, are we starting in 1970 and going to 1979? Starting in 1971 and going to 1980? Is that why we're saying 1970 to 1980? So again, just being a little bit more specific here. I love how these are set up into 10-year groups, but if it is like 1970 to 1979, 1980 to 1989, I think just updating the titles here to make that very, very clear to the user would be helpful. That said, I absolutely love how you're breaking this into 10-year segments and how that, when you click on that, it updates the rest of the KPIs and the metrics within the dashboard. Again, kind of thinking about the challenge prompt here of creating that interactive visual, or an interactive visual report to kind of explore the evolution of Lego. I think that the first page here, you do, the primary focus is really on that overall increasing trend of unique Lego sets. And you do provide some filtering capability here by the category, the size, and then the theme. But it's really not until you get to the second page where there's some more opportunity for the viewer to really kind of dig in to things like the size, the age range focus, the number of pieces by set and by year. And again, all of this is interactive and cross filterable. So again, you can do a little bit of additional exploration here. Again, one area of opportunity here, I think trying to find some ways to incorporate or call out some of those major milestones in Lego's evolution, like the licensing partnerships, when the minifigure was introduced, when were there any groundbreaking sets that were introduced? When was the Lego movie made? How did that impact stuff, right? So I think there's some areas there that you could add in those types of milestones to really, really kind of improve the points in the exploration here. So overall, super impressive, really great work.
Oleg's project, I guess, similar to Jack's, is simple, but it is also very focused and effective. And you can see if we go down to his approach here, it's not as drawn out as other people's, but you'll see that since there was a significant number of missing values, he refrained from using any KPIs and then opted to focus on storytelling instead. So the first page of his report will talk about the history of Lego and its growth over time. And if we go over here, you'll see that he does do that. You can see that growth from the line chart. You'll see that he has it broken down by decade here. And I like that he doesn't just have the number of sets per decade, but also the sets per year. Not a lot of people did this, and it helps make comparisons with the 2020s and the rest of the decade, since we're only about a third through this decade. And then the percentage increases compared to the prior decade are done using the sets per year, which is clever. We've also got a few, I'd say, well-curated milestones from Wikipedia, and you've got these nice tooltips. So when Lego was invented, when it was patented, when the minifigure came out, when the first licensed set came out, and then when the first Lego movie-based set came out. So I think these are, again, well chosen. You've got the second page, which highlights the most popular themes. So if we click on that, you'll see that since 1970, Lego released over 130 themes in their sets. These are the top 5. You've got the number of sets for each one. You've got the minimum age, which is really the average minimum age of the sets here. I think it might have been a little bit easier to say average age and then just do the 5+, for example, and that implies that it's an average, but minimum. Maybe I'm nitpicking, but I feel like it's a little bit misleading. And then you've got a small description of each one of these themes. I would have liked a little bit more meat for each of these, so maybe having like the set with most pieces for each one, the most expensive, maybe the first one that was released and when that was released, maybe the latest one. But that said, and if we go back to the challenge prompt, you'll see that Oleg says, since these first two don't really offer much in terms of exploration, I used the third page to let users explore the data set more extensively. So if I stay on the themes, for example, and I want to go explore sets, I can clear all my filters here and maybe look at Star Wars. And I also really appreciate that he grouped or nested the themes and the sub-themes here. I think looking at other entries, it was always very hard to just navigate using all the filters, but I think this makes it a lot easier. So if I go to Star Wars, go down here, I can either select all of Star Wars or actually look at the sub-themes within Star Wars and say maybe only look at, Empire Strikes Back. So I thought that was very clever. He did the same for the decade, so maybe only the ones released in the 90s for Empire Strikes Back. And then we get the filtered result. I do wish I could see the image a little bit bigger. It could have used maybe a tooltip. So whenever I, hovered over a Lego set, I'd see like the full image. It's like teasing me and I can kind of see it, but it just leaves me wanting more. But yeah, overall, I think Oleg doesn't try to do too much. It's not too flashy, but it does focus on the challenge prompt, and I think the execution is quite good. So great job. And that's all the finalists. So who do we think put together the best interactive visual that explores the evolution of Lego sets in the last 50 years?
I want to pitch in for Oleg. you really sold me out on that. And also Marie, Lauren did an awesome job, and I think it was quite slick, and I love the theme absolutely over there and the simplicity. So probably I would endorse those two.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think, Enrique, you sold me on Oleg, but I also, one of the things that I really liked about Marie Anne's was that info section. I feel like for an exploratory dashboard, to have a place where you can go click on the button and kind of see, okay, this is like, this is how you click multiple, this is how you negative select. Like, I thought that was a really, really smart kind of addition to her dashboard.
Yeah, I'm emotionally attached to Jax. I think he did a great job, and I think from a narrative perspective, I like, and I might not have done a good enough job selling that aspect of it. I think his might have been the most concise, but when I put it up against Oleg's, I think that the ability to drill down and understand the set specific things, like I wish I could fuse those two, and to me that would be maybe the perfect submission. But yeah, I think I'm leaning now more towards Oleg's as that simplistic narrative visual there.
Yeah, kind of the same page as everybody else. One of the things that I really like about Jax is that stacked area where you can see the composition, within each decade, right? So you clearly can say, oh, hey, we're increasing the trend over time. And in the 90s, the minifigures were, kind of the largest contributor, right, to the overall composition there within that time period. And then you can see kind of how the trends by, whether it's total Lego sets, total minifigures, whatever it is, really contributes to that overall piece. And I think that's one of the important things for me as part of this, right? Is it's like there's clearly key milestones within Lego's history that impact their growth and the number of sets that they're able to sell. And so I think while like the ability to dig down into specific sets and like some of the UX UI stuff is like super cool. If for me anyway, there's so much value in being able to look at a dashboard and clearly understand like the composition and the impact of that, kind of over time. So I think based on that, like I really like Jack's, I like Jack's submission a lot.
I do too. I was gonna say, Chris, you sold me. I mean, it was
Okay.
I think when it comes to like if I read like the challenge prompt like word by word, which is like letting you explore the history and evolution of Lego, like I think Jax just like hits the nail on the head in terms to that, because that is literally what you're exploring. You're not exploring Lego sets, which is what most people did, but you're exploring the history and evolution, and the way he like made you like brought you into the story by doing that whole like window pane thing, which I need to work that into a dashboard someday, because that's what I love about some of these challenges, like learning all these, just learning stuff and things that you want to implement into the work. That was very impressive. And the fact that, it's supposed to like bring up the call outs, and then it's smart, and like every time you go to the next decade, it shows you the like percent change with the previous period, just to kind of like keep tying that back. I really liked it. I think there's a lot to say to like Mateusz and Stefanos, just like very talented executions of what their vision was. I would just say Jax was more closely tied to the challenge prompt. It's hard.
I also would piggyback off of what Aaron said about kind of like being able to see trend over time. I think Oleg did that really well with like calling out the like big key milestones. It's kind of easy to see, okay, well, when Star Wars kind of had their collaboration with Lego, like that increased the ability to create Lego sets. And when the Lego movie came out, this also kind of added to it. So thinking about kind of like what we can see from like what our challengers are providing, I think that was a really great kind of easy way to interpret, like these are some of the big key milestones and these are things that led to growth.
Yeah. Does everyone kind of have an idea of who they want to vote for in their head? It looks like we've kind of put up Marianne Mellis, Jack, and Oleg.
Okay.
Maybe we vote in that order. So Marianne 1, Jack 2, Oleg 3. All right, let's do this.
Good.
1, 2, 3. that?
That's a 2.
That's
That's a 2.
All right,
Rocking on
it
with the 2.
looks like Jack.
Chris has got the
Oh, look at
balloons.
Chris with
Oh,
the
there's
early
the balloons.
celebration.
I'm never
Nice.
voting 2 again just for that. Just for the
All right, congratulations to Jack. Let's give him a round of applause. So as a prize, you'll be taking home a free annual membership to Maven Analytics and a custom Maven Challenge winner t-shirt. So congratulations. And that's it for this challenge. So thanks again for everyone that continues to participate. We've got some new ideas, new formats that we're going to try for the next ones in 2024. So make sure to stay tuned. And thank you.